How many times have you seen the catfish joints, man? How many times have you seen the catfish joints where somebody is so sure that they're in love with this person that they've never met, that they've never spoken to? They are so sure that they're in love. And why is it always that it just so happens to be the most classically, traditionally, conventionally attractive person or quote unquote handsome or quote unquote beautiful person? And it's like, I love them. And why do they love them? They're just nice to me. We have such a low standard for what will activate that sense of love within us. That's why I'm such a fan of wisdom and maturity and clarity, pursuit of it. It's presupposed, I see, that it's you get older, you just automatically are gonna get wiser. You get older, you just automatically are gonna get sharper. Hell to the no. Hell to the no. That is not true at all. You do not get wiser and sharper merely from aging. Aging exists, in fact, in a vacuum. It is not a guarantee. Therefore, what should we be doing? We should be chasing and pursuing wisdom in the forms of reading books, in the forms of having meaningful conversations, in the forms of a big fan of writing. Are you journaling? Are you writing out your thoughts and feelings? Have you ever? It is a cathartic experience. It is a revelatory experience. It is an epiphanous experience. There's something magical about pencil, pen to paper, writing one's thoughts honestly, non-judgmentally. And my point is, we all claim we want love in our lives. We all claim we want deeper connections in our lives. And from what I see from everybody who claims that, they do not just as powerfully pursue clarity. Clarity is not on the menu. Clarity is something that clarity gets pushed away from a kind of hubris. I don't need to meditate. I don't need to contemplate. I don't need to be honest about I don't need to engage in a kind of self-confrontation that does not, where my self-esteem is not on the chopping block, but rather just my entire being is on the chopping block. It's something beautiful about having a realization where you have that quote unquote ego death. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's important because I would argue that our insecurities dictate way too many of our decisions. Our insecurities dictate way too much of our behavior. Our insecurities dictate way too many of our connections. And so you claim you want love, good. Everybody claims they want love, but they're not engaging in all of the other just as equally important muscles. It's kind of like thinking, it's kind of like the way that people have this relationship with love. It's similar to somebody just working out the glamour muscles and not working out the entirety of their body for what people would call quote unquote functionality. But another word, because then there's people who have issues with that word functionality, functional workouts. Let's just call it workouts that have more practical application. There's a video I remember a long time ago where there's this bodybuilding dude who couldn't even reach behind his back. Like he couldn't grab, like this is a dude who put a piece of paper on his back. He was so bulked up that his arm couldn't even reach to get the paper off of him. And if that's how you want to roll, that's how you want to roll. But don't be surprised. That's what people do with love. It's just love, love, love. And then they wonder, it's never surprising to me when it doesn't work out with people who claim they were just so in love with each other, because you're just focused on one aspect of their humanity, thinking that one aspect is somehow magical. The thing that's magical, if there's anything magical about us as humans, it's our ability to be self-conscious, not in the way that people typically mean, but self-conscious and synonymous with self-aware. The ability to self-scrutinize, self-analyze, the ability to see honestly, and to be able to use the magical thing that we have is this thing called words. Words, there's something about them that they're magical in the sense that you remove them in the form of meditation, or the form of thoughtlessness, in the form of wordlessness. It's a powerful experience. And then when you add them with just massive intentionality, there's something amazing about them, and there's something magical about them. There's like an abracadabra element to them. But I've noticed for a lot of people, words don't matter. Words have lost their magic. Words have lost their power. You know why they lost their power? Because we're just constantly listening to people, just bit, meaningless, just nonsense. And then out of our mouth, we're just engaging in vocal auditory caffeination. That's what I call it. It's visual and auditory caffeination. It's just something just to keep our mind going, but it's nothing really that's reaching something that depth within us and getting at the base of our humanity, which is to say something that reaches down in our soul. But what that takes is a kind of measured form of articulation unto yourself and unto others. But instead, we go to the way that we use love, terms like love, I put it in the category of like high fructose corn syrup. It's like a simple sugar. We're not getting the complex carbohydrate of it all. We're not getting the fiber. We're not getting the protein. We're not getting all of the other nutrients that come along with something like love. Love cannot properly exist in an internal environment where one does not pursue wisdom, one does not pursue clarity, one does not pursue growth. And not growth, clarity, and wisdom purely in the context of a job. Not growth, clarity, and wisdom purely in the context of making friends. I'm talking about growth, clarity, and wisdom in the context of raw existence. Raw existence. We don't want to talk about the rawness of existence. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because we're lemmings and we're just a bit of a followers. We tend to not want to engage with certain topics unless it's topical, unless it's other people, unless somebody who is credible, unless some celebrity, some famous person, or if it's something to do at the moment. We're just a bunch of followers, but snap your fingers. No one else exists but you. What's left? Existence itself. You still exist. So therefore, why are we not thinking about existence in and of itself? Why are we not asking simple questions like, what is meaning? And then, you should be answering that for yourself. But meaning is whatever I believe after thinking about it myself. Meaning is whatever we decide it is. I believe that we as human beings are meaning makers. It's meaningful to us to have, I have no doubt that a person who only has plants in their home, and that's where they invest their energy into, and that's the meaning for them, and they sit in stillness and drink tea and read books and just they're warm to people. And I believe that they have a more meaningful life than half the people who are just aimless, blah, going la 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 la. But it's not a competition, whatever. Your meaning may not be my meaning, but ultimately I would hope that we can have an overlap where what's meaningful for sure is however you live your life and however I live my life. What matters absolutely is, because the inevitability for both of us is death, because the inevitability for both of us is some form of tragedy, then it would behoove us to behave with each other, to treat each other right to the best of our ability. And therefore, what is there to say? If that's not your interest and if that's not your conclusion, then I'm not sure I would like to hear that your why. Because I would argue that no matter how nihilistic or misanthropic you might be, my conclusion is, if our inevitability is death, then treating each other right must be our priority, because there's no reason to accelerate that inevitability. There's no reason to add to the chaos that is natural. Harmony is not necessarily natural. Chaos is natural. Chaos is inevitable. And especially with us humans you see what we do compared to, you don't see squirrels typically going just one day. You don't typically see a squirrel or some other animal decide one day, I just want to kill everything. Human beings do that. I don't want to kill everything for the sake of it. I'm sure you could point to some certain areas, and animals definitely have their dysfunction. There's forced copulation, and there's cannibalism, and there's all kind of sick crap. There's infanticides. There's all kind of things that animals do. Like, animals ain't these perfectly moral creatures. And my point is, we as humans, the fact that even though the animal world isn't perfect, but we still find a way to be worse than the animal world is crazy because we are sophisticated animals ourselves, and I would argue that we have a responsibility with our capacities and with our faculties to be better than, first of all, than nature itself, than what we see. We're part of nature, but you know what I mean? Because we tend to look at ourselves because we're so unique. We tend to look at ourselves outside of it. And plus, since we have this magical thing called words. Yeah, man, clarity and wisdom needs to be on the menu. But it's not. We'd like to think that, no, when I hit a certain age, love, kids, la la la, put my fingers in my ear, just go. You're just becoming stupider. You're just becoming weaker. You're just becoming less wise day by day. If you don't see the fight and the necessity of fighting for wisdom and sharpness and clarity, then I think that you can't be surprised by all the dysfunction and just combobulation in your life. That being said, you can absolutely do everything perfectly, quote unquote, and tragedy will still strike. But my point is, there's so many people that are just so quote unquote confused and just don't know and just like they can't differentiate needs from wants and just can't. You got to set them down, man. You got to wrestle with the raw existence of it all. You got to go on that philosopher's journey in a sense. It's not about my interest in quote unquote philosophizing. It has nothing to do with academia. It has nothing to do with wanting to do anything except have answers to to questions that we all should be asking. You have the ability to ask these questions. Why aren't you asking these questions? And why don't you have the courage to answer them and the patience to at least reside in a state of, I don't know for a while, but let me go on this journey and figuring it out. I ramble on. I digress. Bless you all.